Hello, world. Welcome to another week of Golf Subpar. Colt Knost and Drew Stoltz coming at you. Sleaze, what an exciting golf tournament we had up in Las Vegas. The CJ Cup out at the Summit. Rory McIlroy picks up his 20th PGA Tour win.
Yeah, 128 on the weekend. Typically not a bad way to get it done there. Would have loved to see the front nine on the coverage. We could talk about that in a little bit there, but we didn't get to see a ton of it. But Rory looked like, especially on the weekend, looked like the Rory we've been waiting to see for forever. It's the guy you expect. Just hitting hammers off the tee. Nice little smooth, 177 ball speed with the 3-wood over and over.
Yeah, carried 320 yards, but he ended up number 2 in strokes gained off the tee for the week, number 1 in putting, which does not happen very often for him, but 25 under with a triple bogey, by the way,
with
early
a triple
in the week.
On 17, day one, still shot a 68. Yeah, he's hitting like 164 ball speed with his hybrid, but I thought he looked great on the greens. It just looked like, there was no technique involved. It looked like he was just hitting shots. When he gave his interviews after the round, he started talking about look, I got away from what I do and I started getting a little more technical. I started trying to be somebody else, which I found shocking because I think if you took a poll of all the PGA Tour players, like who's the guy that you look at and be like, man, I'd like to be able to do that, it'd be Rory McIlroy. And then there he is trying to, do something else. But, are we going to start seeing Rory win 3, 4, 5 times a year like we have in the past? Maybe. It's been a while. But, if he goes out there and putts it the way he did this past week, damn, it becomes a really, really hard guy to beat.
Yeah, hasn't won a major in 7 years, looking to end that streak this coming season, but it's good to see him back in the winner's circle. He put on a show. I think a lot of people might have criticized the scores a little bit for how low they were around the Summit. I said going in, this place, they're going to torch it. It's not built for a PGA Tour event. That's one thing I don't think people understand is this is a Discovery Land property that is made for their members to have a good time on, not to try to test the best players in the world.
Especially set up at a par 72. That was what surprised me. I thought they'd move it to a par 70. All right, cool. You knock off 8, and all of a sudden 17 under wins. It's like, oh, yeah, that's fairly normal. But, yeah, these are, like you said, Discovery Land properties. They're set up for comfort stations, good times, member guests, go out with your boys, and you give them a Sunday like they had with no wind. They actually got a little bit of wind the first couple of days, at least enough to, play a little bit of tricks on them. But that's what you're going to get, dude. It seemed like there was a 10 under every single round. Rory shooting it, a bunch of guys shooting it. Taylor Gooch in the final round, too, with a nice little hole out there on 18. It made him some money. But, yeah, 25 under. That's what you get him on a resort golf course with no wind on the weekend, more or less. Perfect greens. And that's what they're going to do. And now Rory's a lifetime member on the PGA Tour once he plays his 15th season. 23, 24, he'll be in there, so that's nice. He doesn't have to worry about going down to the Korn Ferry Tour. That's got to be a huge relief for him.
Yeah, but I know we were rooting hard to pick up another win for Golf Subpar with our guy Ricky Fowler. Held a 2-shot lead through 54 holes. Final round, 1 under par 71 to end up finishing tied for third. Just didn't quite have it on Sunday. But listen, it was a step in the right direction. I think he's got to take a lot of positives away from this week.
Yeah, mostly I thought in the final round was with the putter. He just didn't seem to hold the putts. It wasn't great all week, but he was hitting it so good. The thing that I took away most from Rick, and I think he's had a big problem with in the last year or so, is the driver. You just can't beat these guys. You're not going to beat a Rory McIlroy, Jon Rahm, these guys, if you're not driving it long and straight. And he drove it really, really well yesterday. 12 of 14 fairways. I think at least one of his missed fairways was with a 3-wood. But, he was hitting rockets out there. 350. Even the hole he made double on 6, 350 in the middle of the fairway. Ended up making a 7 from there. But, if he can continue that form, driving it that way, he can contend and he can win again. He's going to win again because you just can't do it driving it short and crooked or shorter and crooked. You got to be able to hit it out there with those guys, and he did it. He did it yesterday. I thought it was a big positive for Ricky, even though he didn't get it done.
Yeah, it's funny to look back at his career. He's held the 54-hole lead several times. I think it's 8 in his career, and he's never once broken 70. And we're at a golf course where the field's averaging just above 68. You got to go low. That was a pretty disappointing round, I thought, for him yesterday. But listen, hopefully he builds on it. He's been struggling. He's fell to 128th in the world. Now he's up to 82nd. So trending in the right direction, trying to get in that top 50 so he can be back at Augusta National. But listen, Rory McIlroy, it's what we expect. He's back in the top 10 in the world. It's hard to believe he ever left the top 10 in the world with his game. But I think both of these guys are set up for a big 2022.
I thought Ricky Fowler, I'll be interested to get your take on this. Just watching him yesterday, I know he's done a lot of work on his golf swing and things like that, but if you rewind it back in the past when he was probably playing his best golf, he played from a pretty laid off position, right? And I thought yesterday he does that little rehearsal where he gets it halfway back and it's on line with his feet and his target and all that. But at the top, I felt like it was more laid off than I saw him even late last year when he wasn't playing his best golf. And I think he's just a guy that maybe plays best from that position. if he can just go back to doing what he does and maybe not get so caught up in the technique, just the same way Rory McIlroy said he did, I think he just let him do what he does, because he's been the best guy, one of the best players in the world from the time he was, a kid all the way up until just recently. I think he just needs to get back to erasing that brain and hitting golf shots. But if he hits that driver the way he did this past week, he's got a big year coming.
Yeah, he was number 1 in strokes gained off the tee. I believe number 3rd in strokes gained approach. Led the field in greens and regulation. Only missed 9 greens all week. So that's the big thing we need to see. We need to see his ball striking turnaround. When the putter gets going, he's got one of the best putting strokes in the world. When the putter gets going, he's going to contend. And I'm looking for him to keep this thing rolling into Japan this week and see what happens. But, Sleeves, what a guest we have this week.
Yes.
One of the most interesting men in golf, Bryson DeChambeau. We've had his former caddy, Tim Tucker, on. Now we have his current caddy, Brian Zeigler, joining us, who used to work at Whisper Rock, then was one of the pros over at Dallas National, befriended Bryson, and now he's carrying his bag.
He's been all over the place: Florida, Michigan, Wyoming, and he just linked up with Chris Como at one point, started berating him with text, trying to get involved, doing anything he can to help, and boom, fast forward a few years, and now he's on the bag for Bryson DeChambeau. So we do a deep dive in here. We had Tim Tucker before, talked about what it was like working with Bryson, and then now we get kind of the new look. And by the way, just thrown into the fire right away. Just all of a sudden, bam, hey, you're the caddy in waiting. Nope, you're the caddy, and here comes some big-time events.
Oh, it's his first event's the Open Championship. He's got the split with Tim Tucker. He's got the Brooks Koepka beef.
WGCs, playoffs, yeah.
I believe his 6th event as a caddy was the Ryder Cup.
Yeah.
Pretty cool story for Brian Zeigler. But before we get to him, did you know major champions Jon Rahm and Phil Mickelson both play the Callaway Chrome Soft X? Chrome Soft X is incredible through the wind, but still workable. Plus, it delivers amazing greenside action. The standard Chrome Soft offers soft feel and short game control. And the new Chrome Soft XLS is for players who prefer the firmest feel and lower spin on full shots. Chrome Soft isn't just better for major champions. It's better for everyone. Find your Chrome Soft at CallawayGolf.com/ChromeSoft. All right, here's Brian Zeigler on Golf Subpar.
All right, this man with us here today has had a hell of a year. He went from teaching pro to caddy and waiting to full-time caddy to full-blown internet meme, all in the span of a few short months. He is the bag man for Bryson DeChambeau. Brian Zeigler, welcome aboard, brother.
What's up? Thanks for having me.
Good to be with you, bro.
Thanks for joining us. Congratulations on all the success, Brian. This has been really cool to watch, but we want to get to know. We know a lot about Bryson, which we're going to get to, but we got to find out a little bit about you before. Tell us a little bit about your golfing background. When did you get started? Was there dreams of playing professionally or anything?
No, I started playing at like 10. I was, never really that great through high school. Like I was okay, I was decent, but I didn't try to play in college. Went to Arizona State, did the PGM program there. Started working at Whisper Rock when I was in school and kind of worked my way up through the golf business that way. So, but no aspirations for playing early on. And, I'm a decent player. I'm probably like a +2 handicap, but I'm not, a +6 or 7 to where I had a chance to play golf. But
yeah. So the golf world's getting to know you now as Bryson's caddy, clearly. But like, I know you from way back at Whisper Rock. You were busting balls on the range, caddying for all the nitwits out there. Give us a rundown of how you went from that to being on the bag for one of the best players in the world, because that took some time.
Yeah, it definitely took some time. I was at Whisper Rock in 9, 10, 11, I think were the years that I was there when I was at school. And then kind of just bounced around the country as an assistant for the next 4 or 5 years. And right when I left Whisper Rock, I started doing a lot more teaching in my roles. And I wanted to eventually get into full-time teaching. And then I ended up in Florida working for a guy named Tom Dyer at Old Marsh, great pro, really, really big into teaching, taught a couple 100 hours one year when I was there with him. And that's actually where I met Chris Como, a guy named John Graham, and a couple other teachers. And then I was getting a little bit burnt out on being an assistant and folding shirts and doing all that stuff. And like all my time in my 8-year career before that time, 14 out of my 15 favorite days were all teaching related things. And I said that to my boss at the end of the year. I'm like, I think I want to go into full-time teaching. He's like, I could have told you that after you working here for a month. And I had been working there for a year at the time. I'm like, oh, great, thanks. So I ended up just through a guy named Bobby Pancratz at PXG, knew Jim McLean really well. And he's like, Jim told me he was looking for an assistant. Would you be interested in the job? Like interviewing for the job? And I said, yeah, no problem. So I sent a resume to Jim, and 20 minutes later, my phone starts ringing with a Miami number. And I'm like, I pick it up. I'm like, hello. He's like, hey, it's Jim McLean here. And I'm like, yeah, okay, no problem. And then like my phone kind of cut out. I don't know, we just lost service. And he calls me right back. And like I started getting interviewed 20 minutes after I sent him my resume. So that kind of got me into as his assistant. And I worked for him for a year. And then I took a job, director of instruction up in Wyoming. And this whole time I had known Chris prior to taking the job for Jim and knew I wanted to work for him and get with him. So after that summer in Wyoming, I started working full time at Dallas National. I did one more summer in Wyoming, but yeah, I was at Dallas National for 3 years with Chris.
What was it about Chris Como that made you want to work under him?
He's the most interesting man in the world. Like who wouldn't want to work? Who wouldn't want to work under him? I really enjoyed my time watching other teachers. When I was at Old Marsh, I watched John Bierkin teach a lot. I watched Tom teach quite a bit, and I really liked that part of it. And then working for Jim, I mean, I shadowed him for 500 hours as his assistant. We probably did 500 hours of just talking about golf in the 10 months that I worked for him. And then when I got to know Chris a little bit, I was like, man, he just does things so different, and they always seem to work out really well. And I'd like to learn that. And I always thought he was a really smart guy and took a very interesting path into teaching. And I'm like, that's really cool. I like that. It's not traditional where, you read all these books, you take the information you got from the books and you regurgitate it. It's like, he's a big absorber of information. And like Bryson's a lot like this too, where like he hears a lot of stuff and listens to a lot of stuff, but then makes his own connections and then spits it out at somebody. And I'm like, man, that's really cool. So I like, even in the 3 years that I worked for him and, the hundreds of hours that I watched him teach, I felt like I never watched the same lesson working for Chris. It was like, it was just so off the wall and like so cool to see, and like how he got everything to fit together and how a lot of it just is based off how people can actually move and the physical things that they can actually do. So that was one of the, that was the big reason why I wanted to work for him, because he was one of the best teachers I'd ever seen at the time. So still is.
Were you working with Chris when he was working with Tiger? Did you get to sit in on any of that?
No. So when I met Chris, he was working with Tiger. And that was kind of one of the ways that I got in with Chris. Was I just kept bugging him, like, is there anything I can do for you? Can I help you out with anything? And then, one day he texted me, he's like, can you do stats for Tiger XYZ and on driving? I'm like, sure. So I spent like 4 hours and I put like 2 or 3 spreadsheets together and I emailed it to him, and I didn't hear back from him for like a day or two. And he texted me, he goes, oh, I just wanted to know what he was ranked in 13 driving. I was like, okay, no problem.
Wasting
Thanks.
4 hours.
Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
So, but it was cool. Like, so it was like, one of the reasons why I really like working for Chris is there wasn't much structure to it. And he let me really grow on my own. And like, he'd be like, look at this type of stuff, come to a conclusion. And that made me be better as a teacher and as a forward thinker and as a critical thinker. And I think that's where really good golf instructors are really good critical thinkers. And I think, really good players can be critical thinkers as well. Like Phil Mickelson really comes to mind. Tiger, very analytical. Bryson's very analytical. Those are a lot of the people that I see really get to the top are those types of mindsets. And I've always kind of been that analytical thinker as well. So I gravitated towards that really easily.
Was the first time you met Bryson with Chris Como, or did you know him from before?
No, that was I think I met him on the range. It was even before they were officially working together. I met Bryson just at Dallas National because he practices out there a bunch. And, as a new teacher, I don't have any clients day one working at Dallas National. So for like the first month or two, I did a lot of walking the range and like just watching guys hit golf balls. And I was like, I just asked him, I said, hey, can I record your swing? Can you hit a couple shots so I can just have some video for my database so I can study some stuff? He goes, yeah, no problem. And like, everybody at Dallas National was great with that. Like Carlos Ortiz, I got a bunch of his swings and stuff. So that was when I first met him. And then I think it was November, December, or January, sometime in that, where they started really working together officially. So that was then I got to be just in the circle of things and got to know Bryson a lot better that way.
What was your first impression of Bryson when you met him, before you started working together?
He has, just like you do, Drew, he has the gift of gab. So he can really talk and he gets really deep into subjects. So when he's working on something, he's going to tell you what he's working on, and he's going to tell you everything of how he's working on it. And so we talked about a lot of subjects like that. And that's kind of like, we'll do that with anything. Like, you had a 30-minute discussion about UFOs with him. And like, I've been in that discussion too. And it's really cool. So like, that's that was like an intro to Bryson.
Well, that's incredible. I mean,
both very smart.
You go from obviously watching him hit golf balls to them being in the inner circle. At what point did possibly caddying for him come up?
Let's see. So that was October of 18 when I met him. October 19, October 20. Right around, I think it was like end of 20.
Okay.
Sorry, I can tell you the first time. We were walking down the fairway, the 13th fairway at Harding Park, PGA Championship 2020. And Tim's kind of walking out in front of us, and like Tim had like some knee issues going on at the time, and he was kind of limping a little bit. And Bryson looked at me, he goes, "Would you ever caddy for me?" I was like, you mean if like Tim went down or anything? He's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, sure. Like I could step in. He's like, because you're the only person who's ever at any of my events or anything I've ever seen like shadow a caddy, because I used to, when I would go to events with Chris and Bryson, I would always Monday go walk the course with Tim, because I always thought that was really interesting. And I just wanted to learn. I'm in no point in my mind did I think it would lead to anything, but I just wanted to learn, like, okay, what is he looking at on the golf course? How is he trying to figure out how Bryson's going to play it? And, what would we do different strategy wise? So that was always fun. And as you guys know, like Tim's awesome, like world-class guy. Like I just liked hanging out with Tim. So, he asked me and I said, yeah, like on an interim basis, like, sure. Like if, something happened to Tim for a tournament or something, I'd love to do it. He's like, okay. And then I didn't hear anything about it for like 6 or 7 months. And then we were talking, we were doing some shoot for the Olympics, and he looks at me, he goes, do you want to caddy for me in Australia? And I'm like, yeah, like just, why Australia? Is like, well, Tim's got a conflict of things. It's kind of like in the middle of the off season. And, I'm like, yeah, like that'd be awesome. That'd be way cool. So like, I just thought it was like a one-off thing. And then he's like, Tim's got some health issues with his knees, and he's, venturing into these other activities in his life and entrepreneurship type stuff. And he's like, he's probably going to retire at some point in time in the next year or two. Would you be interested in the job? And I was like, I don't really know. Like, I've never really liked caddying for members. So like, am I actually going to like my job? And I love teaching. And like, I was like, I found teaching to be really interesting, and it was fun to continue to learn and get better as a teacher. So I was like, man, I don't really know if I'm going to like the job. And he's like, you're going to make a lot more money. I was like, yeah, but like, I'm pretty comfortable as is right now. If I don't like the job, like I'm not going to want to do it. You're not going to want me on the bag. It's not going to be a good relationship. And then I kind of like, I thought about it for probably like 2 months or so, where like, okay, if he asked me to do it, would I do it? And I was like, I got to do it, right? Like from a career as a teacher standpoint, it's like, okay, I'm going to be inside the ropes with a top 5 player in the world and a guy who just over the last year and a half has gained all this distance, and he's playing a different type of game. He's playing, chess. And I'm like, how can I pass up an opportunity to just be around this? And I liked being around him. Like we became really good friends over these 3 years. So it was like, I liked just being around him and hanging out. So I told him in April, maybe somewhere in that range. I was like, listen, when it's time, I'm full in. Like, you just let me know and I'll do it. So I had ended up shadowing Tim at 2 more events where I went out and was actively not just like shadowing what he was doing, but like training and getting into the real specifics of everything that they do, from tournament preparation, pre-round preparation, on the golf course stuff. And then I caddied for him for 9 holes in a pro-am, just to kind of get used to like what that flow was like. And thinking that it was going to be like an end of the year type thing or a year and a half from then type thing. So we had planned out, I think, me going to 3 more events that summer, and then whatever I would need to do the next year if he ended up staying another year and a half. And then I was in Texas at the LPGA event, and I just gotten a new phone and my phone didn't work. So apparently Wednesday night of Rocket Mortgage, Bryson, like after they had split, was trying to call me and couldn't get a hold of me, and nobody could. And then the next day I looked at my phone and got a text message from his agent at like noon. And he's like, "Hey, are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." He's like, "Oh, did you hear the news?" I was like, "What news are you talking about?" He's like, "Have you not looked at the PGA Tour app?" I was like, "No." And he's like, "Oh." And then that whole thing, he was just like, "Yeah." He's like, he's like, "You're the list." He goes, "You're ready to go?" And I said, "You got it." So,
There we go.
which was great. Yeah. So that was it.
I think
so
it's
then boom.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. Like, I mean, to learn that, you took some time to actually think about it. I think most people would be like, "Oh my God," you probably jumped off your couch and said, "Hell yeah, when and where, and I'll be there." But you
Sure.
actually took a lot of time, and I mean, that's really, really cool. But I want to go back to the part of you shadowing Tim, because that's not normal. I mean, what Bryson does is obviously very unique in the game of golf. But like most guys don't go follow other caddies around and try to learn from them. What was the process like trying to learn everything Bryson wants from a caddy, and how long until you felt comfortable with all the information?
I still am not comfortable with all the information.
Never.
Yeah. I would say the process stuff of pre-tournament and why we do it probably was through like the beginning of the playoffs, where I like actually felt comfortable with what we were doing. Shadowing Tim, Tim's very smart, very like to the point. Here's why we do X, Y, Z. And that was a huge help for me. I mean, I still look at my notes that I have in my phone from when Tim and I spent 2 days of just going over, here's what we do at 5 minutes in, here's what we do at 10 minutes in, here's what we do at 15 minutes in, here's the putting stuff, here's the wedge stuff. And it's like, as I was receiving that information from him and writing it down, I was like, I can't process any of this. I'm like, I don't understand what you're saying, but I'm just going to put it all into this so then I can go back and refer to it. So, especially with like the putting stuff. So yeah, it took me some time to fully understand why we did things. And then that made it a lot easier to remember what we need to do and when we need to do it and how we need to do it. But the on the course stuff, I felt like I was pretty lost at the Open Championship. Like just kind of hoping that I didn't screw up or stand in anybody's way or, do some things that I did. But yeah, no, I think like it probably took 2 or 3 tournaments where I felt really comfortable with what we were trying to do. Yeah. And, there's still moments where I'm lost.
Sleaze,
And you were like,
real quick.
Yeah.
Sleaze, real quick, before you switch gears real quick, I want to go back to the putting thing for his warm-up because, I've been out there at a lot of events doing TV, and I've never seen anybody else do what he does on the putting green. Can you give us like a quick breakdown of his putting warm-up?
Sure. Starting line, speed, and 5-footers. So he hits balls to get the ball to make sure it's rolling good for the day. And then he's taking his stroke, figuring out the speed of the greens, and then he hits a 5-foot breaking putt. So he does something called vector putting, which is was a book written back in the 60s, and then it's been reworked a little bit since. And so he has an idea of at 20 feet on a stimp of XYZ, the ball is going to break XYZ. And he trains to know how far his stroke needs to go to hit a 20-footer.
Yeah,
So,
dude.
It's unbelievable.
Normal
I've never
stuff.
seen-
That's how I played. How'd you do it? Do you do it different? That's the same shit I still do now.
Yeah. So to this point, right? So we're on the 4th hole at the Open Championship during a practice round playing with Open Championship was my first tournament. Like,
Here we go. Let's go.
pretty cool. So it's Dustin Johnson, John Rahm, Bryson, and Jordan Spieth. We're on the 4th green, and it's like this slope in the middle of it's like a 16. It's just you're in a big bowl. It's way up, and then it's over and back, and it's like a 65-foot putt, and we're guessing you got to hit it like 110 feet. So Bryson's like, okay, it needs to be at this speed. So like we hit the putt, comes off 21.2 miles an hour, finishes 2 feet away from the hole. John Rahm comes walking over. He goes, "What are you guys doing over here?" Throws a ball down, and Bryson's like, "Well, if we hit it, if your ball speed is this, it equates to this, and the ball will go to the hole." John's like, "Okay," and he looks down, and he hits the putt, and it goes to 1 foot, and he looks down. He goes, "I don't know what speed my ball was coming off at." He goes, "Here, drop another one." Hits another one, and he's hitting these speeds like perfect, like exactly how Bryson did. And I'm like, "Yeah, you're just really good, John. Just keep doing what you're doing." He's like,
Yeah.
And he looks at Bryson. He goes, "I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing."
Yeah. Yeah. It's working. It's working so far.
Yeah.
But so, like, I mean,
Yeah.
going in, you're about as prepared as you can be. You spent a bunch of time around Bryson. You know his game. You know the vernacular. You spent time shadowing Tim. But you've never been a caddy before. So you step into the mix. There's got to be some sort of mess ups or something that you butchered along the way. Give us the biggest thing you've messed up since you've been on the bag.
The biggest thing I've messed up.
Your biggest blunder.
Yeah, I mean, like, I've handed him probably 6 or 7 clubs that weren't clean. Like, come on, that's got to be number 1 for a caddy,
Jesus,
right?
bro.
I know. And then Northern Trust, I pulled a U, actually. I was walking off the first tee. I got past the first tee box and said, "Oh, yeah, where's the pin on this hole? Oh, wait, I don't have a pin sheet."
That
I
happens.
thought you were going to say you wore golf shoes.
See, dude, that happens to even the greats. Did you make Bryson run back and get it? Because that's what I told. I was like, dude, you better go get one, or else you're gonna play like shit.
He was about 2 steps in front of me, and I made it back around to get the pin sheet and got back up to him before he even noticed that I was gone. So
That speed,
yeah,
your speed,
That
you got
was-
speed though.
hustling with that bag. So.
We asked this to Tim when he was on. I want to know if it's changed at all, or it's similar. But walk us through a shot. You walk up, Bryson hits his ball in the fairway. You set the bag down. You're trying to figure out how far to hit it, what club to hit. Walk us through the whole deal.
Yeah, so we get our front of the green yardage and then pin yardage, and then we are looking at the elevation, looking at the wind, all typical stuff everybody would look at, seeing if what the air density is for the day, and then how does that relate to what our yardage chart was from earlier in the week, because that'll change throughout the week. And then we'll talk through a shot. We get it down to the yard, so we are, if it's a 175 shot and the greens are a little bit firm, we're trying to land this at 171. We're playing it, let's say it's 5 downwind, we're playing 166, and that's going to be on our yardage chart for today is going to equate to a 10, 30, 50 degree wedge. So we know what all our clubs are going to fly. And then when we get to hitting a little bit different shots, different flights, then we have some minor adjustments that we make. But we're taking all this information, and this is where he finds his piece and things, and I do as well. It's like, I want all the information that I can get. He wants all the information that he can get. Let's talk about it all, and we're coming to a conclusion. And we're coming to this point of like, okay, this shot is a 162-yard shot. Great. I've made X swing will equate to a 162-yard shot. And he's very at peace with that, right? Where some people are like, well, I don't want to hear about the water on the right. I don't want to hear about the wind. I don't want to hear how the green's going to bounce. It's like, I just want to hit the shot. We want all that information. And that's why sometimes early on, when like I wasn't really good at like, what's the order the information needs to come in, we would be a little bit slower because I would be off in the process, and he's like, I'm ready to hit. And I'm like, I'm not 100% ready for you to hit. And he was so patient with me with that, where like I'm telling him I'm not ready, and he's the number 5 player in the world. Like, give me one more second here, please. And he's like, okay, no problem. And like, I think him helping me out too, I think he enjoyed that. And then that was like something that got his mind a little bit, like if we're in a pressure situation, he was there also helping me and getting me better at my job, and that gave him a calmness to it too. So we're just taking all the information that we can get, try to get it down to a final number, and make the swing to hit that number, and then we accept whatever results come out of it.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff which y'all go through over each shot. And one thing Tim said, and I'm interested to hear if you agree with this, he was surprised more PGA Tour players don't go through the process Bryson does.
100%. Especially as a teacher, because I knew that I would learn a lot about teaching going through this, but I, in my own game, am very much the same way as like, I want all that information and I'm going to come up with a number. As a teacher teaching good players, I've learned and seen that some players don't like that, but a lot of the players that I do teach, I help them get more into that process. And I'm very surprised that a lot of PGA Tour players don't do that. Like I've seen guys where they don't even interact with their caddy, just grab a club and hit a shot and keep going. And I'm like, I wouldn't, if that was, this is one of the things that we talked about from the beginning. If that's what my job is going to be, that I'm just there to carry a bag for you and like talk about a ball game, like I'm not going to enjoy that. And I don't want to be I don't want to caddy for you if that's the case. From day one, shot number one was like, what should we do here? We're on the first hole at the Open Championship and he's having driver issues all the practice rounds. And I'm like, well, we should hit 4-iron. He's like, we should hit. I'm like, well, I think we should hit 4-iron. He's like, I want to hit driver. I was like, okay, well, how am I supposed to interject now? Right. Like, am I supposed to just call him off the very first tee shot that we've ever had? Like, no, we should probably hit 4-iron.
That would have been
so
epic.
So I was like, no problem. Yeah, hit driver. Hit in the right rough, made a bogey. So it was like, it's always been, we've had a really good relationship of talking through everything. And that's been awesome.
Zeke, let me ask you this since you just brought that up. Like starting off, I'm sure you're a little skittish. You're getting to know everything. It takes you a little bit of time. Are you to the point now, like secure enough in your job to where if he wants to do something and you don't agree with it or don't believe in it, you'll call him off and be like, no, dude, like that's not it?
We talk through every shot. Like you would talk through it to where like maybe I've called him off shots and not even knowing that I've called him off shots, if that makes sense, where like he never comes to me and is like, you know, we're going to hit this shot here. It's always like, okay, well, let's talk about everything that comes out of it. So we're putting all this stuff into an equation and then figuring out what is the best shot. You know, I called him off one shot one time when the wind picked up and he hit it in the bunker, and we happened to have a lead in the tournament at the time when we did it. And he kind of like looked at me like, man, you've never called me off a shot before. I was like, yeah, but like, man, the wind kicked up and changed directions like 10 miles an hour. This is a Caves Valley on the 6th hole where that whole area was just swirling. And every day the wind was pushing down and out of the left. And we tried to play a draw into it every day and we missed the pin right. Well, now we thought it was going to be coming that same direction. And then I feel it coming hard in out of the right. And we're trying to play a draw to a front left pin and you're dead if you miss it left. So I just like called him off the shot real quick just to like have him reset. And then he hit a bad, you know, not that he hit a bad shot, but he left it in the bunker. And, you know, that was the only time I've ever actually called him off a shot when he was already past the routine where we talk about the shot. So just one time.
Way to go. He blew it.
I think the one thing, one thing that's so much different than what anybody else does, it's like, you know, it can be rather warm out. It can be hot out. You know, there's some helping wind where a lot of players you hear, you know, we have 155. It's hot. It's downwind. It's probably playing around 148. Like y'all come up with the exact number. Like there's no guessing. And I think that's what's so fascinating about what y'all do.
Yeah. Yeah. We, you know, again, it's like, well, the way his brain works and the way mine works, the more precise that we can get with something, the more committed we're going to get to it. And then we're just going to make the best swing from there. Like we're wrong. Like we get numbers wrong, but he's always making a swing committed to whatever number we've decided on, which is all you can ask for as a caddy from a player, is that you commit to the shot. I mean, I can't remember maybe one occasion where he's like, oh yeah, he's like, we came up with this, but I wasn't really too sure about it. Like maybe one time in 6 tournaments. So, you know, I love that as a caddy and as a coach, right? As a teacher, where like your student or my player is 100% committed to whatever the shot shape they want and shot that they want to have. That's when you're going to have your most optimal shots. They're not always going to be perfect, but like that's when you have the ability to hit these perfect shots.
Yeah, and Zeke, you come in, you not only have to learn of all Bryson's stuff and what order he likes it in and all that type of stuff, right? Then you got to learn how to be a caddy, which you've never really caddied before, so you got to learn all that goes with that. But then you also come into the mix right at the peak of the Brooksy mayhem with the fans yelling at that Bryson, you know, while he's hitting and stuff. Have you had any instances this year where you've had to step in and regulate a little bit, flex those bicep tattoos on some folks?
Yeah. I mean, just like turning and looking at players or people and like, you know, quiet please. And, you know, I can sense when things have disturbed him, or so like, that's when I'll, you know, turn and look at somebody, but it's all the time. And it was all the time. So it's not that, it's not that it was ever really quiet when he was hitting golf shots. So the little bit of noise, you know, it was all right. You know, we were okay with that. We were accepting of it because that's all I've known. And that's all he's been experiencing for the last 6 months or so. Where it really started to bother him more, and what people don't get is like, we were playing with John Rahm and Patrick Cantlay on Saturday. Yeah, Saturday at Cays Valley. Yeah, Saturday at Cays Valley. There was a 6-hole stretch where I don't think John or Patrick hit a shot when people weren't yelling or moving around. And like, nobody wants to win under this situation where like the fans are interfering with the golfer, right? You don't want to beat somebody because somebody yelled in their backswing and they hit a bad shot. But through the first 5 or 6 holes, everybody was yelling, and you know, Patrick and John and Bryson were all stepping off of shots. And then by the time the 7th hole comes around and there's 10,000 people around the hole, I mean, I just watched John just get up and just hit a shot when people are right after Bryson hit, and people are like walking and yelling Brooksy, and he just hits a shot because you can't just keep waiting. So more of the disturbing of everybody, and the direction of there's going to start being live betting at golf events. Like Waste Management's the first one with live betting. Like, good luck. You don't think somebody that's got $10,000 on the line isn't going to throw a beer can at a golfer? 100% something like that's going to happen. So I think it was great with the statement that the PGA Tour came out with, because you have to set up some type of precedent going forward when live betting gets into this. And that's where Bryson, being as analytical and smart as he is, he's like, yes, it bothers me. He goes, but like, dude, like, does it really bother me that much? Not really. But I'm looking at what is happening on the whole aspect of the tour. What's it going to be like when there is sports live betting everywhere? So, you know, he had a lot of that running through his mind, and that bothered him more than almost, you know, some drunk fan screaming Brooksy.
Yeah, I kind of forgot. Like, you came in the middle of all of it. I mean, you got him and Tim splitting, the Brooksy thing. Oh, great! Yeah. Now we got to go team up at the Ryder Cup with Brooks together. Like,
yeah,
I know we're gonna get. I want to talk about the Ryder Cup because Sleaze and I were there. It was our first Ryder Cup. Was it your first Ryder Cup? I'm guessing. I know it was your first one to caddy, obviously, but first one to ever be at.
First one to ever be at.
I mean, what was that week like for you? I mean, because the fans really embraced Bryson and got behind him. You didn't really hear Brooksy at all that week, obviously, because they're on the same team. But take us a little bit through that week. What was it like for you?
Yeah, so we did a team practice like 2 weeks before that, maybe 10 days before we flew out there, and we flew out with Jordan, Scotty Scheffler, and then Scotty McGinnis, who's Scotty's caddy, and Bryson. And I was just on the plane, and I looked at Scotty McGinnis because it was his first Ryder Cup too, and Scotty Scheffler, and I was like, I think that we might be the 3 most excited people to go to the Ryder Cup. Because as a player, like, most of the players are coming off of the end of the playoffs, and like, they're kind of tired and all that. But like, I mean, I had more energy for those 20 days than I did the whole season. Like, I was so pumped. I love everything about the Ryder Cup. It's probably my favorite event outside the Masters as a golf fan to watch. And now, like, I get to be a part of it. It's so cool. And so we went and we did the 2-day practice round, which was a ton of fun. Scotty and Bryson really hit it off. Bryson really wanted to play with Scotty. Scotty really wanted to play with Bryson, and they embraced that, which was awesome. And then when we got to the Ryder Cup, you know, we walk the golf course and play practice rounds, and like, we're all amped up, we're all ready to do this, and then we sit the first match, and I'm like, oh man. and Scotty and Bryson played alternate shot for, you know, and they shot like 7 or 8 under, and I'm like, man, these two, like, how do you not want to take somebody who gives great wedge players and iron players like a 40-50 yard advantage? So yeah. But like, I know there's a lot that goes into selecting who plays when and where, and you know, it was totally fine. Obviously we kicked major ass, so that's all that really mattered. We did it right. Strict did it right. So that whole week was so cool. Like, being out on the first tee when all the groups were teeing off and the morning waves was awesome, and just feeling the environment out there was really cool. Yeah, it was really, really special and something I'll never forget. And I talked to Jimmy Johnson after we won, and he's like, man, he's like, you can win any event you want. And he goes, this is it right here, winning the Ryder Cup. He goes, this is the best. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. Let's go.
That's awesome.
And it's awesome. And I mean, I have to be the most spoiled caddy there is, right? My first event's the Open Championship. We're final group at WGC. I have 3 playoff events where we finish, we have an epic playoff, and then the Ryder Cup. Like, I'm going to go to the Tournament of Champions and be like, wow, this is so boring.
Is shit. Hawaii sucks.
What is this? Hawaii's terrible. So, it's it's awesome. Like it's been an unbelievable experience so far, and I'm really excited to do it for as long as I can do it for.
The coolest moment, I think, Zeig, that I was present for was the final day singles match. First tee, y'all playing Sergio, and I had watched the first couple groups hit, and they were getting it up to the front edge and stuff like that. And here comes Bryson in the next group. I'm like, dude, this is probably like an off-speed driver. Like he has plenty of gas, but just will he hit the green was the question. And then you guys stood up there, land soft like on the front fringe, and trickles on. The place went nuts, like as loud as I've ever heard it on a golf course before. When he gave you the club back and you guys started walking, like, what was that conversation? That was I was like, I'll never forget that shot till as long as I live.
Yeah. So, I mean, I got LASIK eye surgery, and I still can't see a ball landing 370 yards away. So, like, I follow a ball for a pretty long time, and then it's gone, right? And his ball hangs in the air for like 8-9 seconds. So he hits the shot, and the ball's in the air, and like I got the bag on my shoulder, and we've taken 2 steps already. And then all of a sudden the crowd just erupts. And we look over to our left, and there's a big screen, and we look at it, and we see the ball land and roll up on the green. And he's probably 2 or 3 steps in front of me. So this is before you even got off the first tee box. And I'm like, Bryson, you need your putter, like right in front of Sergio. And he grabs his putter, he holds it up in the air, and like, oh, it's so cool. It's so cool because, like, I mean, Sergio is like the villain for Europe. Like, super nice guy. He was awesome. But like, he's the guy that you just want to beat as an American, is Sergio. I think he's played the record number of matches in a Ryder Cup. And like, he's the defeater of us. Right. So it's like, it was cool to be playing against him. And then he drops the 40-footer, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. So yeah, it was awesome because like the team stuff is great. Like Scotty and Bryson played awesome. Like, I mean, Colt, you've probably played with Scotty 100 times. Like, how good he is at golf. I don't think the world actually understands how good Scotty is at golf. And that was like a huge coming out party for Scotty, and it was awesome. And so having the team stuff was really cool because, we're going through talking about different win numbers and different shots. And as a caddy, you never sit there with another caddy and talk with you about your player's shot or another player's shot. So like talking with Scotty McGinnis about like, well, what do you guys play for win? What were you thinking here? With how your ball reacted, like that was really cool to like dive into how does another caddy actually caddy? Because my exposure to caddies is Tim, and then a little bit of just like chatting with the guys now that I've had experiences with. But now I'm actually in it, like listening to Scotty's conversation with Scotty about how they're going to hit a shot. I'm like, oh, that's a cool way to do it. And like, little things like writing all the different stuff in the book after you hit each shot, like where was the wind direction coming from? Where did it fly? All this and that. Like, so like I was constantly there trying to learn too. When we got to singles and it was one-on-one, like that was when I was like, man, this is really, really strong. Like, this is really cool. Landing on the green and then making that putt. I think I said the biggest after he made that putt on number 1, just like with the flag in my hand, and I was pumped. So it was really like the whole thing. Just what an unbelievable experience. And I got this. I don't know if
Oh yeah, show it off.
I may
there
have taken this. There's 12 of these I think out there. And these were one of the bottles I got popped after we won the Ryder Cup, and it's made its way to Plano, Texas. So that's going to be there for a long time.
That's a nice memento.
Yeah.
Brian, let me ask you this, because that week, I mean, like I said, the crowd got behind him. Bryson did everything right. He was out there pumping the crowd up and everything. Do you think we might see a different Bryson on the golf course going forward? Because, he's been criticized with how he's handled some things in the past, but at the Ryder Cup, everything was great. Do you think maybe that might have opened his eyes a little bit and be like, man, this is really fun being this way and being where everybody supports me?
It's so interesting because I feel like the way he was at the Ryder Cup is how he is a lot of the time when he's playing well, right? Like if you're not playing well, this is Colt and Drew as a player. Like if you're not playing well, you don't want to interact with fans. You don't want to sit there and be lively and everything. When he's playing good, and he does that stuff all the time. I mean, how many times I've handed him a 4-iron and the crowd boos, and then he just turns around and goes, yeah, I know, let me hear the boos, or I'll fake him out, I'll fake hand him the 4-iron, he'll pull the driver out, and the crowd goes crazy. So he likes that interaction a lot of the time. I mean, so I would say that a negative moment overshadows 100 positive moments. Mm-hmm. So yeah. I think just with kind of some of the negative moments that we had, which him and Tim splitting wasn't even a negative moment, and it just gets viewed in this world as oh my gosh, this huge thing happened. It's okay, well, I mean, we knew this was going to happen at some point in time. There's somebody in training to do it. That doesn't usually happen in the caddy world, right? It's you don't have somebody in waiting to do this job. That's not, so it's that wasn't even a negative, but gets viewed as a negative. And then the driver situation, the Open Championship, is what it is. We moved on from it. I thought him playing really well at WGC brought a lot of, it stopped this, right? So I was nervous that there would be a lot of questions of oh, he's got a new caddy and he's not playing well, right? So that was my concern. So our second tournament out, we're in the final group on Sunday. So I was okay, well, all those concerns about him not being the greatest golfer on the planet are gone, because he's the most talented golfer in the world. And so, that brought a big ease to my mind about okay, I can do this role. The world's not going to think that him making a caddy change is this huge change. And he's moving in a great direction and on an awesome trajectory because he's been playing great golf. So I don't know if I answered your question, but my guy's the best.
Yeah,
my guy's the best in the world. If I need to say that again.
Yeah, we got the answer plus. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of other players have taken note. They're listen, if Bryson drives it well, it's really, really hard for us to beat him. I was with y'all at that WGC in Memphis on Saturday when you shot 63. And I don't even know, I'm sure you know this, but I took a little note and I said he hit 5-iron, I believe, into the third hole, the par 5. And other than that, he never hit more than 9-iron into any green. So he hit 17 9-irons or less and shot the easiest 63 I've ever seen. And I'm just guys, y'all want to beat this guy? You're going to have to do something special, kind of like Patrick Cantlay did, where he made over 530 foot of putts. It's the only way to beat him if he drives it the way he can.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you take what happened at Caves Valley, because it's a perfect example of it. Patrick Cantlay broke the record for strokes gained putting since 2004 when they had that, starting as a stat. So it took a guy to have the best putting week of his career, statistically, of the last 17 years, to tie us to go into a playoff. And we missed some shots coming down the stretch. And so it's it was it sucked not to win, but we processed and moved on from it, right? So I learned a lot in those moments. He learned a lot in those moments. The biggest moment was when we're in the fourth playoff hole and he hits the ball in the water, and he's walking down the fairway, and obviously he's pissed. He's man, I just lost this tournament. And I could just see he's man, I'm so mad. And I looked at him and I said, listen, you need to hit a golf shot. We need to get it up and down, and we need to beat him on the next hole. He goes, you're right. And just got out of it, hits it to 3 feet. We par, go to the next hole. And then, we missed we made a 2 on the hole after that. And then, so it was tough to be a part of, because to me, that whole Sunday, not that I was expecting us to win, but it felt like we were going to win the whole time. And then we didn't win. And it was it was a letdown in that way. Not that we were like, oh yeah, we're going to win this golf tournament. It was like, man, everything seems like it's moving in our direction to win, because like, I mean, Patrick putted unbelievably good. And like after the round, I'm going back through it. I'm like, man, since like the 13th hole, that guy made every single putt. I think he took 8 putts in his last 7 holes. So it's like, that's what it took for him to get to 27 under for us. And we felt like we played like we played as an A throughout the whole week. And then, we played like a B+ on Sunday. It's like, man, if we have our A game on Sunday, we win the tournament by 5 and we shoot 32 or 33 under.
Yeah. Patrick Cantlay has a really good putting. Yeah. Patrick Cantlay has a really good putting week. You win by 6. He had to have a historic putting week to tie you. So I mean, trust me, talking to the other players out there, they've taken notice. If this man hits it really, really straight, and as far as he's hitting it, we got problems.
Yeah, 100%.
Big problems. And Bryson's always a guy, I liken him to Phil a little bit. He's always trying to get better. He's always tinkering, doing something weird, side saddle, the same length irons, gaining all the weight. Is there anything in the works right now that you guys are doing that's out of the ordinary that you may be unleashing later on? Any tinkering going on?
Always tinkering going on. So there's always speed training going on.
There's a little smile there. Wow.
I will elect to not answer that question. Next question, please, sir.
Oh my God. Like, what is it? You got a time machine? Are you guys building a time machine?
Well, we already have one. We just need we need to send back the time machine.
Oh, that's interesting. So, I'm on pins and needles now.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what he has in the works. But one last thing before we get to the emergency 9, I want to know, because a lot of hype was made about him heading into Augusta National, back in November, and how basically, I mean, Jordan Spieth on this podcast came out and said, the Masters is Bryson's to lose. Like, this place sets up so perfect for him. Are you a little bit surprised that he hasn't had more success at Augusta National with the new game he has?
Well, I guess so. The first time he sees it is in November of 2020 with the new game, like full on the new game. Yeah, I mean, I guess a little bit, Colt, you've played there, right?
No, I haven't. I'm playing there in a few weeks.
Sorry.
That's a nice joke. Hey, you haven't caddied there yet either.
Hey, get them in. Get the shots in.
I have not. I mean, Drew set me up for that one. He said to make sure you mention Augusta at least once, because you were going to pump that you're going to play it in a couple of weeks and all that. So
that's fine.
I don't know, right? Like in theory, it's like, okay, high draw hitter is supposed to play well at Augusta. Okay, great. Well, Dustin Johnson hits about a 2-yard fade, and he played pretty well at Augusta. I don't know. I don't know why he hasn't had more success there. But I'm really excited to dive into that a little bit more. And maybe it's, maybe this will be the year that he has a lot more success there.
The high draw thing at Augusta is the most asinine thing in my mind. Like, I don't know who started that and why everyone thinks that's true, because the guy who's won the most green jackets, Jack Nicklaus, played a fade. Tiger Woods plays a fade. Dustin Johnson has a scoring record, plays a fade. I don't get why they think you have to hook it around this place.
Ben Hogan played a fade. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think there's just a couple tee shots that set up really well for it that give you a big advantage. Like if you can get it around on 2, if you can get it around on 13. But I think they pushed the tee box back on 13 was what I heard. And so, I mean, 10 is another place where you need to draw it.
10 to 13. That's it.
Right. Yeah. But those are pivotal holes, right? I mean, you're talking, you go from having, if you're a high draw hitter, you could have that hits at the same distance. You could have 3 less clubs in the 13 than somebody who's a fader, because, so, and then, 10's kind of the same way, where you can get down and around that corner a little bit easier to where you have maybe 2 less clubs in than what a fader would have. And 2, if you can just let it roast and get around that turn, you don't worry about the right bunker and you're going to get a big bounce down. So you always have an opportunity to go for that green in 2. So it's like stuff like that, those little things. That's where not only does Bryson have a huge advantage hitting it 14 miles further than everybody else, but he has a huge advantage in how he looks at golf courses. Like take like 18 at East Lake, for example, right? So we're talking about, we always have to look at like, okay, if I could hit the ball 340 yards in the air at 150 feet, how would you play this hole to where it's the best? So like, I'm just looking on Google Maps and like kind of looking at like, well, if we go down 10 at East Lake, the hole's about 10 yards shorter. Plus, we can hit driver as hard as we want because then we don't have risk running out into the water long. And then for the pin that's tucked right over the bunker and the middle left pin, we have great angles in where we can land 14 short of that right pin, where if you're coming at the pin from the fairway, we can land 2 yards short. So it's like stuff like that where he gets a huge edge, is that he has that extra distance, he has that extra gear, but he's also willing to do that. He's willing to look at like, yeah, well, where do we need to go? He goes, just scout it out. Yeah, I said, this is where we need to hit this golf ball. If you hit it 330 yards, you're going to get to here. Our only real risk is that if it stays a little right on 10 or on 10 in 10's fairway, we're going to have to punch out. But then we have an 80-yard wedge shot. Anything left is good. He hit 7-iron onto the green during the second round. We had to punch out during the fourth round, and he hit a wedge on and made birdie anyways. So he is so willing to commit to something like that it's so much fun. And that's the hardest part of my job, is figuring out, and this was a big transition for me, was I play golf probably pretty close to the same way you two play golf. And then now I have to start looking at
let's pump the brakes here, Zeeks. I'm kidding. Keep going.
I would say from a distance perspective and a traditional way of playing the game perspective, we probably all have the same mentality of how we look at things. Now I got a caddy for a guy who has a 20-yard gap in between his clubs, hits the ball 25 feet higher than anybody else, hits the driver 35 yards further than everybody else. And I need to figure out, how am I going to get him to play his best golf? And it made I completely rethink like how I would do course layout and stuff like that, and strategy for a golf course for a player. So it's been awesome.
When you play golf now, Zeeks, do you just feel like a complete pansy ass? Like, oh my God, this is just like, this is kiddie golf. This isn't even real shit.
Yeah, 100%.
You're skewed for life. You'll never be happy with yourself ever again.
And I think that's the hard part too. I think this is where like people who watched Tiger hit in like 2000 and like that was like their image of what a perfect golf shot is like. That's what mine's like now, of like, okay, Bryson hits his 8-iron 210 yards. Like I hit my 8-iron 160. That's a 50-yard difference. Like that.
It's tough. And he's hitting like 70 in front of you.
Correct. And so it's like, I'm like, man, like I don't even want to play golf now.
Yep. You've ruined the game.
Yeah. Like, I can't hit it 350 off the tee, and I can't hit a 6-iron into this par 5. I got to actually lay up. So it's interesting. And then like, I work with a LPGA Tour player, and, you know, we were just doing some wedge work, and I'm just like, yeah, so we're at 80 yards. Like, is this like just like a little lob wedge? She's like, it's, you know, she's like, that's the top end of my lob wedge, bottom end of my sand wedge. And I'm like, oh yeah, sorry. It just felt terrible. So yeah, it was.
Tell Serena you were making fun of her distance.
Oh yeah, all the time. She needs to hit it further. Yeah,
I'll let her know.
For sure.
Gain some weight.
Well, yeah.
The end of the story is you made the proper decision, caddying for Bryson DeChambeau. There's no doubt about that. We could talk about this all day, but we do have to get to the emergency 9.
All right.
This is where we have some fun. Sleaze, I'm gonna let you start it off this week.
All right, Zeke, this is the one we asked to everybody. You get to trade lives with one person in the world, dead or alive, for one day. Who you got?
Oh, man.
If you say Bryson, you're such a kiss ass.
Yeah, don't even try to.
I know. Tim said that, so I can't say it, but I would like to. Okay, how about I would like to play a round of golf with his ability one time. So that's only 4 hours out of my day.
Yeah.
The other 20 hours out of the day, who would I be?
Okay, you're way overthinking this. You don't get to change multiple people for
this
an
is
hour.
like the most analytical answer ever. People are like, LeBron.
Oh, man. Yeah, I don't know. Albert Einstein. I don't know. That'd be cool. He's a really smart dude. Sorry.
That sounds
bad.
That'd be a boring ass day. Just be behind a desk all day doing experiments.
The crazy pictures? No, come on.
All right, Einstein. That's how Colt and I live every day.
Okay, number 2. Do you think Bryson takes the scientific approach he takes to golf to his dating life?
Yes.
How is that possible? I love it.
Yeah. Yes.
Does he have like spreadsheets on chicks, like pros and cons, and then weight them in some formula? Is there yes or no?
Well,
like in Alone Came Polly.
Yeah, I think he has like he has a specific. Yeah, he has like a specific type of woman that he would like to have in his life. So he's not he for sure has that type of mentality. He has that mentality with everything, so it doesn't matter what.
I love it.
Yeah, I don't think that turns off ever, from what I gather.
No.
All right, next one, Zeig. If I were to say the term Black Christmas, what comes to mind first?
Oh man, that I'm still gonna get in trouble from Trent for this one, for sure. I mean, this is not great.
You're so far above him now, dude.
I am way not above him, and I'm still scared. Like, I knew you were gonna ask me this, and I was still nervous thinking about it this morning. Back in 2010, I thought that playing at Whisper Rock on Christmas when it was closed was a really good idea. And the nice part was the person that caught us let us finish playing that day. We played 36. We saw this guy on like the front nine. And then the next day when I came in for work, it didn't go over very well. Yeah, Trent wasn't very happy with me. And I felt horrible about it. And I still do to this day. Like, I'm still scared of Trent to this day. So, yeah.
Oh, he's soft. You don't need to be scared.
Thanks for bringing that one up.
It took balls to do that, too. I respect that. The sneaking on Christmas Day.
Yeah, I won like a couple $100 too. So that was,
oh, shit.
That was
it's worth it.
Yeah.
All right. Good work.
All right.
Yeah.
Next one, it's kind of like caddy courtesy. Like, you're walking by another player's bag, and if their caddy's a little behind, you like pick it up for them. Do you ever pick up another player's bag and be like, damn, I really wish our bag was that light?
All the time. Every bag that I've picked up has been like that. Yeah.
Dude, so at the WGC at Memphis, y'all were playing with Dustin, and the second hole, you have to walk back to that third tee, and I'm standing over there talking, and AJ comes by. He's like, dude, pick up Bryson's bag. This thing is a fucking joke. Like, how?
Yeah.
Seriously, give the people at home an estimate of how much you think it weighs.
And tournament days are the lightest days, just so y'all know. I mean, practice round days are the worst. It's got to weigh 55 pounds. And it's not positioned very well. It's like the straps are super long. So, like, I think every caddy deal, like, and what I learned too is that I am the smallest caddy on tour. There's like 3 or 4 guys that are like my size or smaller. Everybody else are bigger guys that are caddying out there. They're taller. So, like, this strap is so long, and like the bag, I can never get it to sit on my hips. So it's like, it's always in the shortest setting and it's always up, and I am so hunched over. So like all my workout stuff is like, can I get to sit up a little bit more as I can do this, so I can just do this job for a long period of time? Because if I didn't do anything to get stronger, like, I couldn't do this job for a long period of time, because I'm just not tall enough or big enough to just do it. So I'm actually in a big bulking phase right now. I'm trying to get up to 165 by the time I get to Hawaii.
Whoa, relax.
Yeah,
165.
I know. That's 10 pounds, man. That's a lot. I was told I got to eat a lot of white rice.
Yeah, you're in good hands, I got a feeling, on how to put on some LBs.
Yes.
All right. So as you mentioned earlier, Bryson told me firsthand about a UFO encounter that he had in Dallas. Can you confirm that these sightings are legitimate?
I can confirm, and there's actually video confirmation of it. And I know everybody who was there. There was multiple people there. It was not just one person. And then there was a big, like, if you Googled that date, UFO sightings in Dallas, there were a lot of people that saw it as well.
It was like 3 saucers flying around. He went through it in depth. It was fascinating.
Yeah. So the video is one, and then it's like, it's gone. And like, it kind of like, cause you like big 10x zoom in, and then like, the camera's kind of like moving around a lot, and then it like moved, and then it was just gone. So yeah, they said they saw two or 3 saucers, whatever it was. Yeah. I wish I was there. I was bummed.
Damn. Yeah.
That
Me too.
Awesome.
Me too. Big into that.
Take me.
Yeah. Well, that might be the answer to my next question. My question is, what does an off week look like for Bryson, and what does he do for fun?
Work out a lot.
So there's no such thing as an off week.
There's no such
So
thing
same thing as
an
an
off
on week. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's got a place that he vacations that he goes to, but like even there, like he's working out and playing golf, or hitting golf balls anyways. Yeah. Like, I mean, the most downtime I ever saw him have is when we both had COVID and we didn't get to go to the Olympics. So, I mean, we were down and out for like 10 days at his house, just quarantined there and eating a lot of chicken and rice and chicken noodle soup and sleeping a lot.
What's on the TV at Bryson DeChambeau's house?
Well, that week we watched the Olympics. So thankfully the Olympics were on, because, you don't want to have to like figure out something to watch when you can't leave the house. So that was the Olympics all week. Like MLB TV gets on there, and then there's we watch we watch a couple of these guys on Twitch who do like slot machines for a ton of money. And like, I'm not a slots person, like the gambling I played poker. So it I was like, yeah, this is going to be dumb. And we started watching it, and man, I think we watched it for like 2 hours. Like this guy just like 1,000 of push. It's like boom, 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 and he's going crazy. He's like, what's going on here? And then the guy won $1 million. I'm like, I'm hooked for life. Like I will watch this guy push slots for $1,000 of push and for life, because this is so much fun to watch. And I'm like, man, it's like you feel like you get that gambling rush without having to lose any money.
Damn.
But yeah, that there's quite a few of those guys that we watch, and they're funny.
I got to get off PieGow and get into the slots. It's
Oh,
not
no,
exciting watching PieGow
wait.
for 4 hours.
But you could play PieGow for 4 hours with $100 and never lose a hand.
And you can get totally blasted and walk out dead even. It's the ultimate con.
That is correct. And then there's another game that I just discovered because I was just in Atlantic City. What is it called? It's like something flush game where you get dealt 7 cards and you get a flush. Well, like the second or third hand I'm playing, all you're looking for is flushes. Well, I look at the queen of clubs, the jack of clubs, and then the 10 of clubs were my first 3 cards I pulled, and I'm looking at like these bonuses. I've already got like an 8-to-1 bonus, and I got another 2-to-1 bonus. Next card, king of clubs. So now I have a 4-card straight flush, and I'm like, oh my god! I was like, if I hit one more, like on $25, I'm getting 1,000 to 1.
I hit Atlantic City.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. I could buy the Wild West wherever I was at, and then my next club's a 2 of clubs. So now I have 5 clubs, which is like a 10-to-1 bonus. I have a 4-card straight flush, which is like a 60-to-1 bonus, and then I go red. I'm like, ah, perfect. And I look down. I played this thing for like 3 hands. I won like $2,500. I was like, all right, cool, thanks. I'll see you guys later.
Shit,
what a game.
That's
and that was it. Yeah,
Sign me up.
So,
Brainless money.
But yeah,
always
more
looking
of
for it.
like, I like playing PieGow because there's like it's just fun to just sit there and kill time, because I don't like playing blackjack. I don't like doing any of those other things. So lots of PieGow if I'm going to sit and watch other people gamble.
All right, that's a good little insight as to what you guys watch. Give us a little more here. Bryson's always got his headphones in when he's practicing. Yep. What's the most embarrassing song or artist on his playlist?
It's not embarrassing. He listens to a lot of Coldplay.
Oh, yeah, very emo, super emo on the range.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of I forget what. It's a lot of like no words. It's like I don't know.
Inya.
But it's like, yeah, it's like it's soft. It's good. It's like it's an easy listen. So yeah, that's a lot of what he's
very spiritual man. Very spiritual man.
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, just getting deep.
No Katy Perry for Bryson DeChambeau.
Little disappointing.
No, there might be some in there. There's a little bit of country on his playlist.
Good man. Got to listen to the country every once in a while.
Yeah.
All right. First, when I ask you this, first thing that pops into your head, best shot you've ever seen Bryson DeChambeau hit?
Oh my gosh. I'm not really good at this. The wedge shot that he hit in the 4th hole of the playoff into the 3 feet against Patrick Cantlay.
When he'd already stuffed it in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I thought maybe the drive at Ryder Cup.
Yeah, the drive on 1 or the drive on 5 at the Ryder Cup.
Those are pretty good.
That was really cool, but like, I mean, I watch him hit drivers all the time, and I've seen him like to me, it's like, does he clutch up and hit the shot when he needs to hit the shot? That's more of the moment that I'm like, yes, that's it. That's what I wanted to see happen. Sorry, I'll take that all back. 16th hole, he hits a 8-iron from 243 yards at Caves Valley and hits it to 2 feet. That would be the best shot I've ever seen him hit.
8-iron from 243. Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah, that's normal shit. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
with no wind.
Could be
no wind.
Could be a soft 7 in my world. It's nice when the 450-yard drive doesn't even factor in. Oh yeah. I don't. That ain't shit.
So like a little bit to that shot, right? So I forget who. Maybe it was like Roger Maltby during a practice round. He goes, "I bet you can't hit it on this green." Well, of course, Bryson goes driver 7-iron onto the green from the right rough. So now we're on Saturday's round. Saturday's round? Just Friday's round? Oh, Friday or Saturday's round. Either one. Hits it up in kind of the same spot that we were, but we were like another 10 back. So we're going through all this, and like where we fell in the numbers was like, okay, if we think that this is going to fly 15 yards, it's a 6-iron would land you like 10 short. So, but I'm like, hey, he's pretty amped up. He's hitting it pretty good. And like, that's the thing, like Bryson gets not amped up, but like days where he swings it better. It's not like a 2 or 3 yard difference in clubs. It's like a 5% difference. So like Now we're factoring in 10 or 12 yards versus like, oh, I'm swinging it really good today. I'm hitting it 2 or 3 yards further. So I'm like, you're pretty amped up. You thinking what I'm thinking? He's like, yeah, 8-iron. And I'm like, yeah, 8-iron sounds great. So I just hand him the 8-iron and I step back. I'm like, there's no chance this is getting to the green. And he hits it. And I'm like, got to get up. Well, lands pin high, goes to the back of the green, comes back down.
Came back.
And the guy that's walking the guy who was an old caddy was asking like, what club is that? And I'm like, and he's like, do you mean 6? I said, and he's like, and I just show him the 8-iron with all the mud on it. I'm like, 8-iron. And he goes, Bryson just hit an 8-iron from 243 yards to 2 feet. I can't believe it. I'm like, that's awesome. So good.
Yeah, it's so different. Good. It is different.
It is.
For sure.
It is.
All right, last one, Zeke, and we'll let you get out of here.
Right.
Who has a weaker pullout game? You with the flag stick or Antonio Cromartie just in general?
Oh man, I mean,
I knew you'd get it.
Yeah, everybody's been in that situation, and I just happened to do it in front. It wasn't like, I mean, whatever. It was Saturday of the Ryder Cup with 7,000 people around the green. Nobody saw it, so I became a meme, and that was pretty cool. Like we've actually designed a logo that'll be coming out that is like looks like me rattling a flag stick. So beautiful. Yeah, full on panic mode. I mean, it's like you saw the guy do it. Like there was some sand in there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm tending the flag. This is the first time I've ever tended a flag. Like, we don't tend flags anymore in tournaments, and like, usually, so you're supposed to pull it out and like kind of rest it in there. Well, I've caddied 6 times, so I don't really know that. So I took it out and then I put it back in, and then he hits the putt, and like I'm probably pulling it a little bit sideways, and it doesn't want to come out. But then after, like, once everything's calmed down and like John Rahm walked over and Bryson walked over, like I'm still trying to get it out, and like now I'm starting to pull the cup up. So I'm like, just have the official come over and do this. And then he comes over and just goes, whoop. I'm like, great. And I just turned around and I just held the flag stick up.
Yeah, you've officially made it now that there's a meme about you, though.
Right.
That's a good point.
And during the singles match with Sergio, it took him 9 holes before he said anything, because I said, do you want me to pull the flag out for you? He goes, if you can manage that, that's fine. Yeah. And I was like, damn, I was expecting this on like the first hole. So I've embraced it. It's fine. It's great. I'm a meme.
A lot of people dying to be a meme out there. And you've done it already. Well, Zeke, we appreciate you coming on, man. Thank you so much. I think you made the right decision going with Bryson, and nothing but big things coming up for you guys.
Thanks, boys. Appreciate it. This was fun.
You got it. Thank you. That was Bryson DeChambeau's bagman, Brian Zeigler, joining us here on Golf Subpar. I mean, what a crazy ride he's been on lately.
Yeah, I mean, from busting balls at the range of Whisper Rock a handful of years ago to now on the bag, Ryder Cup, majors, WGCs. There's nothing he can be thrown into now that's going to phase him at all. I mean, like you said, first event, he gets out there, major championship, thrown into the middle, like at the peak, I would say, of the Brooksy Bryson stuff. Had to do all that type of deal. Ryder Cup immediately, and just not only that, but like he's caddy and waiting. All right, he's around Bryson a whole lot, but being aware of what Bryson needs, and then actually going into and just learning how to be a caddy too. Like, I think there was probably a long time there where he was like, just don't mess up. Let's get everything this guy needs, and let's keep it moving. Yeah,
and like, no disrespect to you. I mean, you're a world-class caddy.
Correct.
But you couldn't just show up out of the Golf Subpar studios and caddy for Bryson DeChambeau.
No, Bryson would take me 2 years of learning all the shit that he needs. Exactly. It would take me ages. I think it would take any caddy months and months and months to get it to where it's like, here's the progress, here's what you go through, here's all the info.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's different. There's no doubt. He requires a lot more. He goes about things a different way, but it's fascinating the way they do go about it, and it's turning out to be really successful. We mentioned, I mean, they lost a playoff at Cays Valley to a guy who pretty much broke most putting records on the PGA Tour in Patrick Cantlay. And it takes a week like that for someone to beat Bryson when he is driving it the way he is. I mean, at Cays Valley at the Ryder Cup, he was hitting 350-yard just seeds down the middle of the fairway. And like I said before, I've heard from other really, really, really high-ranked players. They're like, if he drives it that way for 4 days, it's really hard to beat him.
There's only a few guys I think you could, if Bryson steps up and hits driver in the middle of the fairway over and over, there's only a few guys I think that could hang with him at that time. And we haven't seen him run away from fields more or less, other than the U.S. Open. But if he does, it's going to take something like Patrick Cantlay did. And by the way, Bryson still had multiple chances to win that golf tournament with putts that, he didn't hole. He still could have done it, even with the best putting week in the history of golf since they started keeping stats.
Yeah, and he did what all great caddies do. He left the pin sheet
Of course,
at one point.
dude. You got to test your guy early. Say, look, you got to set the bar. I am going to fuck up numerous times. We're going to do it here on the first hole just so you get it used to it. And he almost, the not getting the pin out at the Ryder Cup, I was watching that live. I was like, oh my God, this is going to happen. He's going to pull the entire cup out. It's going to be a huge, huge debacle. But he got the Antonio Cromartie reference, which I didn't know. He's probably heard enough jokes at this point about it, but he got Antonio Cromartie.
He did. But one of the things going back to like the beginning is when, they talked about him possibly caddying, he took a couple months to think about it, where I was kind of surprised. I'm kind of like, okay, listen, you're a teaching pro. Some teaching pros make great money. Some don't. But here's a chance where you can go out and really make a great living caddying from one of the best players in the world. But he also, at the end of the day, he knows there's a lot being asked of him. So it was a tough choice, but I was surprised that he thought about it for a good 2 months.
It's probably the toughest caddy job on the PGA Tour in terms of time and what it demands of you. But also, almost any person in the world, I think, that's offered that would jump at it. And I talked to him pretty much like right after he got it. I was like, dude, congratulations, this is awesome. And we talked a little bit, and I was shocked at the time to hear like it wasn't a slam dunk. It wasn't, even though it was caddy and waiting, when the job actually came up, it was like, all right, I got to think about what all this entails. Because he's stepping away from teaching, and that was something he wanted to get into and all that. But it's a pretty big opportunity. And you fly nice to tournaments too.
Yeah, if you get on the bird with Bryson, I mean, you fly private, there's a Bentley sitting there waiting on you, pretty good gig.
He's probably not living exactly like Gino Bonelli on the road. Maybe
No,
slightly different.
Well, thanks to Brian Zeigler for joining us. Sleaze, we almost had a winner with FanDuel this past week. We gave him Colin Morikawa, which was one of the favorites at the CJ Cup. Just fell short by a shot to Rory McIlroy. But it is once again time to add a little excitement to your golf watching experience by betting on it at the FanDuel Sportsbook. There's a reason why FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Their app is very simple to use. They got great odds on all different betting markets, unique fun bet types like same-game parlay, exclusive always-on promotions such as Enhanced Odds Boost on the biggest events to let you get more action out of every game day, or get amongst it, as we like to say here. And if and when you win, Sleaze, they even get your winnings in safely as 24 hours.
Yeah, dude, they got tons of betting options, player props, futures, same-game parlays, which I dipped into quite heavily this week. Came up empty. Our producer, Mark, by the way, is running on some crazy heater right now with the parlays. I was trying to ride that wave a little bit. But you got live betting. It's easy to place your bet fast during a game if you see a trend you like. And the odds boosts and specials. Every day you got some super big boosts. Each weekend, you get something you like. They're going to bump it from plus 110 to plus 160, something like that. Nice way to try to make a little cash.
Yeah, be on the lookout for our Subpar odds boost coming this way for the Zozo Championship. And right now, FanDuel is letting you place your first bet risk-free up to $1,000. Just place a bet on any game or golfer, and FanDuel will refund you up to $1,000 back if you don't win your first bet. Seriously, there's no strings attached. Just place any bet you want. If you win, you keep the cash. If you lose, you get your entire bet up to $1,000 back in site credit. All right, Sleaze, let's get to our picks this week for the Zozo. We're over in Japan. The boys jumped on a charter from Las Vegas, headed across to Japan. Pretty strong field. Got the likes of Xander Schauffele in the field, Hideki Matsuyama. Going to be a very, very interesting one. They're going to be back in a bubble over there, which is a little uncomfortable. Only 5,000 fans a day. But there is money to be made, my friend. And we said Colin Morikawa last week. Almost got it done for us.
Almost had him on the home track.
All right. Well, for me this week, as my favorite, he's going off at 12-1. Nobody knows Japan better than this guy, Hideki Matsuyama.
Yeah, hard to argue against. I like Hideki over there. I was very much leaning towards Xander Schauffele. Has a nice little track record over there as well. Just got himself a gold medal. I'm going a little bit further down the board. We don't know much, if anything, about this golf course, who it suits, who it doesn't suit, all that type of thing. So I'm just going with a guy that I think is on the precipice of winning some golf tournaments, more golf tournaments. Joaquin Niemann at 20-1. Tee to green, he's awesome. It's just when does that putter cooperate with him? But I'm going to go just a little bit down the board. Joaquin Niemann, take a little bit of a shot there. 20-1, I'll go with him if he can catch a hot putter.
All right, I like it. I'm going to go with a guy who just came off a heater in Vegas. Just shot a little final round 61. For my dark horse, he's going off at 41-1. Emiliano Grillo.
Yeah.
Love this man. Absolutely stripes the golf ball if he gets the putter going, which he obviously did on Sunday. Look out. But listen, you shoot a little 61, got to give you a little confidence going into next week.
I would think so. If that doesn't do it, I don't know what you're looking for. He's the guy I think has a strong similarities to Joaquin Niemann. kind of tee to green, really good. When the putter cooperates, tough to beat. I'm staying around that 40-1 mark, just a little bit less. I'm going to go with the guy that's had a good start to the year. Plays nice west, and he's heading even more west than California. I'm going to go Maverick McNeely at 34-1. I think he's just kind of been around the tour long enough now, starting to get his feet wet, and I think he's poised for a big year, but already got one good finish under his belt. Just got clipped by Max Homa. But Maverick McNeely, 34-1. That's my dark horse.
All right, we'll get amongst it with our guys over at FanDuel. If you've never tried FanDuel Sportsbook, what are you waiting for? Go to FanDuel.com/subpar or download the FanDuel Sportsbook app to get started. Be sure to sign up with promo code SUBPAR so they know that we sent you. Must be 21 years and older and present in Arizona or New Jersey. First online real money wager only. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXTSTEP to 53342 or 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, Sleaze. We got another banger of an episode coming up next week. It gets a little loose here. This guy, one of the most entertaining guys out on the PGA Tour, James Jimmy Hahn, joins us, and will not disappoint. I promise you that.
If you don't already love Jimmy, you're about to, because there's some stories that you may find abnormal for the longtime tour pro, given the amount of money they make. Jimmy boy still hunting for deals. Didn't stop him.
All right. Well, thank you to everyone for listening. We'll talk to you on next week's Golf Subpar.